ADHD. What is that? You might know someone with ADHD, or we take it as a joking manner. Sometimes when someone is doing something over the top, you're like, what do you have, ADHD? But ADHD is actually a chronic condition including attention difficulty, hyperactivity, and impulsiveness. The CDC reports about 9.4% of children in the US between the age of 2 to 17 have been diagnosed with ADHD. It has been concluded that through this study, taking medical treatments for ADHD helped to close the GPA gap between adolescents diagnosed and without ADHD. Um, there has also been a major impact and overall thing with kids with ADHD throughout their education. A majority of them have trouble with obviously standing still in class, which can impact their math and their reading achievements. And scientists and doctors have decided, well, I think it's best to just medicate these kids and just so like it can help them with all of that. But is that really the case? The medical treatment of ADHD and children's academic performance by Kello, Holmes, and Folsing, if I'm not mistaken, that's how they say her name, found that children diagnosed with ADHD usually achieve a 2.2 to 2.5 fewer years of school than their peers. Also, only 75% of children with ADHD actually tend to graduate. And both the short-term and long-term effects of ADHD are totally different, depending on also the medications that you take. Um, Usually what happens whenever a child is diagnosed with ADHD is the parent brings the child to the doctor saying, my kid is moving too much, this is happening, this is happening. And the doctors don't really go, from what I've studied, the doctors really don't go into that, like what is actually happening with the child. They automatically just self-medicate them with these medicines. I don't know if I'm gonna say it right, but I'm going to try. It is methapende. Okay, just like a lot of medications that they give them, and these are kids as young as 6 years old. And there's also a lack of research on how this health diagnosis is delivered to children. It's mostly by word of mouth. There really isn't like a type of way to come about to how these kids are being diagnosed, and it's just a very poor part on the doctors and on the parents, because whenever these kids who sometimes will be kids are falsely diagnosed, they are given these medications saying my child is rambunctious, doing all these things, and then the doctor just gives them all these medications, and the side effects, imagine a six-year-old, the side effects are being like zombie-like, depression, lack of appetite, like just like lack of interacting, and all of these things. So exactly how can we go throughout the course of helping these kids with ADHD, how to change the perspective exactly on what ADHD into like a more positive perspective? Well, we can first start by how doctors diagnose these kids. Looking more into other alternatives, more than medication, into therapy, into like putting them into sports, like just like things that can really just help their condition instead of hindering them and leading them towards like bad side effects that I mentioned earlier. Through using both of like these methods that like I did like my researching, and I also went around with asking people that I know that personally suffer from ADHD, and how they said that the medication really didn't help them at all. It was just a way of putting their parents and doctors and like at peace and like at an equilibrium. They said that they would have been helped much better if they were giving another alternative than just being medicated and being like, okay, the problem is over with. And this was just a small portion of people that I asked compared to the 9.4%, well, yeah, 9.4% kids that actually suffer from ADHD. And there are primarily two types of ADHD medication: stimulants and non-stimulants. And I will break that down. The stimulant medication was a type of drug to treat ADHD, and some people have like said that the side effects of those are like horrible. And the non-stimulant medication is also an effective alternative, but it is also not an alternative that really works effectively. It's just like better compared to the other alternative. And whenever these kids do take ADHD, like we always ask the question, well, is it helpful towards them? I guess it's different compared to other, uh, other people, but that's something that always comes up in the medical field and just the world in general. If someone is depressed, you medicate them. If someone is like, example, suffering from ADHD, we medicate them. We are so quick to solve issues with pills and medication that we forget that these are people that have needs and like are probably like going through something way more than what medications can fix and what goes beyond the eye. So exactly how can we help these kids? Like I said before, find other alternatives, therapy, putting them in sports, and just other things besides medicating them. And for doctors to look into this like way more than what is actually looked into, and to help these kids just emotionally and physically and not go automatically to the medical aspect.